Coming up on Artico, we've got food, fashion, and more. So stay tuned. Welcome to this edition of Artico. We've got a great lineup for you today, so let's get started. 30 years ago, Brenda Winstead founded Demoli African Ware. Besides running the business, Brenda is the designer of this innovative and beautiful collection. She specializes in African hand-woven and hand-dyed fabrics, like mudcloth, and in particular, indigo.
I'm really a self-taught designer. I've always been interested in clothing and consider myself a clothes horse, so to say. In the late 80s, I went to West Africa, and I was absolutely fascinated by the way the women dressed and adorned themselves. And I said, oh my goodness, I've got to get something for myself so when I return, I can kind of be in the mix, so to say. And that's what really got me on the path. And the fabric that I fell in love with initially was the mudcloth, properly known as Bogolan Fine from Mali. And I was so intrigued with the fabric, I decided that I needed to go there myself to source the fabric myself. So that's how that part got started. And the advantage of working directly with the dyer is that you can go and select the hand-woven fabric that you want. You can get the right weight that you want and those kinds of things. And so that was very important to me because it allows me to expand my design, concepts. The indigo is one of the things that I specialize in. The outfit that I have on today is a jacket with a large collar that you can bring up or pull over, and it's paired with a knit textile. The pair of trousers that are also paired with a knit. I have on a pattern that is known as fish bones. Kind of comes out of Burkina Faso, and I've paired it with some knit. And one of the things about the indigo is that if you get, say, a jacket one year, you can easily pair it with a top the next year, or a pair of pants, or a skirt. I call it the new black. In Mauritania, there is this wonderful and intricate stitch resist that is all done by hand that takes hours and days to do. Also, the other country that does a lot of stitch resist is Guinea. They produce so much indigo that you will see it in Mali, you'll see it in Senegal, and I think it's because that tradition is passed down to so many different women and girls. The other indigo that I really am in love with is what comes from the Dogon people. It's also a stitch resist, and it's something that they're just known for. And it's also beginning to die down because young people coming along don't see the value in doing this work because they're not getting paid properly. These art forms to me are treasures, and my small way by working with different artists, to preserve the art form. And so I share this information with my clients, and I think it allows them to be more appreciative of what they're receiving. According to the research that's been done, they say that the indigo was produced independently in almost every, portion of the world. But, from the African perspective, the indigo initially was so valuable that it could buy a person. That's just how valuable it was. Because we have to remember that a long time ago, nothing was blue except the sky and the sea. And so when people saw this indigo, this blue, they were like, oh gosh, this must be from the creator. The tree that it comes from, or the bush, is green. And when you see the dye bath, it's a greenish color. And when you dip the fabric in and you initially take it out, it's actually yellow. And then before your very eyes, it starts to turn blue. And so you can imagine that people were like, oh wow, this is something really special.
Brenda is soon headed for Mali to work with her dyers. When she returns, she plans in June to present her latest collection in the DC area. You can keep up with her on Facebook and Instagram. The Krieger Museum opened in 1994. It was originally the home of David and Carmen Krieger and is mostly comprised of their private collection. There's a range of work on display from impressionist to modern, and today it includes the work of master artist and printmaker Lou Stovall.
Lou has had such an outstanding presence in the Washington community and has just been a force in both the arts community and the community in general. He worked with school groups, he worked with adults, he worked with everyone. And so we are forever grateful to him for his generosity in educating all of us in the Washington area and beyond. And we are just thrilled to have his work on view here and invite all of our audiences to come see both of these exhibitions. Viewing Lou's work is an education. I, myself, have learned so much about the whole complicated process of printmaking. And I guess I am especially drawn as an educational tool to the accordion book that is on view down in the lower galleries. There's 16 pages in this accordion book, and Lou would take these and show them to high school groups that he worked with to show the students how complicated the process of printmaking is.
Silkscreen printing is a delicate and laborious process involving drawing, stenciling, stippling, and more, as seen here in this documentary produced in the mid-1980s entitled Through Their Eyes, The Art of Lou and Di Stovall. In it, the audience is invited into the Stovall studio to see how the work gets done.
I think that silkscreen printing is my medium. It's a medium that I have such facility in that I can do it anytime, day or night. I start with an open silk. That means that the silk is cleaned. And I have my drawing under the silk, cover it with glass. And then I fill the whole screen with lacquer-based filler. I take a pool of that liquid and I sort of spread my card, first forward, then back, first forward, then back, first forward, then back, until it's all filled. The range of silkscreen color that you can mix is absolutely endless. It's like painting. You can have any subtlety, any gradation. But if it sings, then it's right. I'm looking for around 100 to 110 prints in this edition, and I'll print perhaps 20 to 30 colors. Drawing, or the ability to draw, is what I was born with, that particular facility to imagine a scene, a place, a feeling, and to make that visual so that other people can share it.
The biggest contribution my dad has made to art and printmaking is developing a mature artistic practice alongside collaborations, working with them to communicate in silkscreen, whether it's a painter or a sculptor, to introduce the medium to them while also making work of his own, and in that way building a community around his art. He built kind of an art history, whether it's an artist like Jacob Lawrence from an older generation or one of his peers, like Sam Gilliam, how he's worked with artists from Howard University who are his teachers, like David Driscoll and Lois Jones.
Lou Stovall studied art at Howard University. He fell in love with silkscreening when he was 15 years old while working in a grocery store in Springfield, Massachusetts. There he learned how to create and design grocery signs, lured by the colors and the smell of the paints.
I was 15, young and inexperienced, but that smell drew me closer to the inks. Color is one of the things that's dominant, and that's what draws me to the medium. That's what I love about it. And once the image is made, that image is then embellished or improved by the various colors that are possible to use. And the process of laying the color on the paper gives a certain amount of joy. The excitement of making a silkscreen print had to do more with the excitement of combining all those colors, one thing at a time, one color at a time, one color following the next, until the whole idea and the whole image was complete. And so it was a substantial investment of ideas and time and method.
We are honored and privileged to present these two exhibitions of Lou Stovall's work. One exhibition, curated by Will Stovall, is titled Of the Land and is in the Garden Gallery. The other exhibition is curated by Danielle Osteen, entitled Lou Stovall on Inventions and Color.
Alecia Cunningham is an award-winning filmmaker, photographer, and writer. Much of her work elegantly comments on the way women are visually judged in the world. Hair, no hair. Makeup, no makeup. One of her many accomplishments is a two-part project, a book and documentary called I Am More Than My Hair.
In 2013, I did a big chop and cut my locks off. And because of the criticism, I decided to come up with an idea, which was a book at that time, to show, to take images of women at different ages to show that we are more than our hair. I was surprised that the bulk of criticism that I received was just for cutting my hair. And there are quite a few verses in the Bible that talks about women and her hair loss, and if she does lose her hair, or if she has no hair, then she's a cursed woman. So that was a lot of the bulk of the criticism, other than my hair being your crown and glory, and your power and your beauty. And because I had locks at that time, you had the whole other Rastafarian community that's saying that your hair is your power, and I didn't think so. You know, I mean, it's beautiful. Don't get me wrong, but I don't feel like it determines my power or my beauty. You know, or my mindset, really. My hope in making I'm More Than My Hair was to be able to see beauty beyond the hair. You know, so I just feel like there's so much emphasis, particularly for women, not that men don't also have this experience with hair, but most of the women, when they were having conversations with me about hair loss, or their experience with hair loss, was, one was devastation, shame, and I feel like also rebirth, you know, of kind of coming to a new place after losing their hair. Also feeling like losing their hair was losing a part of themselves. That was something that was said quite often. For example, women who've had cancer, who lost it through radiation, their hair grows back, you know, so it's temporary. But women who may have different forms of alopecia, where it may not grow back. Some may grow back in like thinner patches, or thinner hair, or grow back completely, or maybe not at all. And it was all different perspectives. Surprisingly, I thought maybe there would have been a little bit more devastation within the African American community, but they seem to have been bolder, you know, with the hair loss. Not all, but you know, with the vast majority. And in the acceptance, it's just like, this is what it is, you know, I'm loving myself through this. And the family bonding may have been a little bit stronger, you know, of like the community there then, which was also similar to the Latina community. They had their partners, often from the stories that were told, cut their hair with them. So like there was one lady where her whole family cut their hair in support of the mom. The one Chinese American woman that I did interview, she actually did it in solidarity of a friend who lost the hair from cancer. And she said in her community, in the Asian community, for a woman to be bald, they consider you to be Buddhist. So it's not really, you know, it's just perception. I've noticed with white women, there seemed to have been a little bit more devastation than I thought it would have been. And well, actually I just learned, really. It was the process of me learning through this whole journey. But still, you know, but with them I also realized like the men have issues. And really what I found in seeing women who were bald was like I really saw their faces. I really got to see the beauty in their face.
Born in Cuba, a Jamaican grandfather, some Chinese ancestry, raised in the DMV, Mix in an amazing culinary aptitude, and you've got the recipe for Chef Brent Herrera, host of Clio TV's Culture Kitchen. She's the first Afro-Latina to host a lifestyle cooking series on a major U.S.-based network.
So the show takes you, or brings you really into my home, my kitchen, really my studio kitchen, which is my home for the time being. And I talk about my family, my friends. I take you around the world because I have spent the last 15 to 20 years traveling internationally, exploring food cultures, trying to really understand people through food, through their foodways. And then I bring all that back into my kitchen and I crank out a lot of dishes. And every chef has a story, and it's pretty much the same whether it's a male chef or a female chef. My mama taught me how to cook, and in essence that's pretty much what happened in my household. And so she invited me into the kitchen at a very early age, mostly because of the pressure cooker. In Caribbean culture and Latin culture, what you normally see in the kitchen are pressure cookers. Pressure cooking is the quintessential way of cooking foods that are typical in our cuisine, like beans, rice, a lot of meats, porks, things like that. When I was doing research for my book, Modern Pressure Cooking, I learned that not too long ago, as recent as 2017, in Cuba, the Castros handed out pressure cookers as a way to subsidize the experience at home. And anyone who's privately manufacturing pressure cookers, and let's say they're selling it for 30 bucks, the government comes in and subsidizes it for you at $5. What is my favorite thing to make? I've been saying this for over a decade. I love making oxtail. And in the pressure cooker, it's done in 35 to 40 minutes, where if you weren't doing it in the pressure cooker, it could easily take you 3 hours. We eat it braised, spicy, hot, delicious, again, cooked in a really robust tomato and red wine sauce, and then you literally have to get your hands, on that bone and suck the marrow out of it. When I first started cooking professionally almost 20 years ago, it was very much a fusion, right? I wanted to introduce the audiences at large to what Cuban cuisine is like. Cuban cuisine, much like maybe Puerto Rican, Haitian, there is no indigenous food because, again, of things that have happened, colonization. Our foods today are very much rooted in the African diaspora and Spanish food. So you'll see a lot of hybrid and a lot of crossover in our foods across the islands. But the Cuban cuisine in general is, again, just a really good homage to the African roots.
We asked Chef Brent about the spices she uses, which she sometimes picks up during her travels to places like Israel, St. Croix, and Italy. She enjoys being introduced to new and exotic flavors, but then there are her favorite staples.
Spices are a lot of cumin, and my mom jokes on me. She's like, you use way too much cumin, but I love cumin because it's a really smoky, earthy spice that gives a lot of meat tremendous flavor. Oregano, like I said, cumin, salt goes in everything, and that's for everybody. That's quite basic. I love smoked paprika. You can find that in the islands as well. Ground ginger, I know that it's very typical in Jamaican cuisine. Food is so powerful. It has a really tremendous, beautiful way of not only empowering us as a community, but also bringing people who don't have anything in common together. So I'm so excited that you're in my kitchen today. I'm making a really special recipe, something that I grew up eating, something that I still thoroughly enjoy. It's one of my favorite recipes. In fact, I got it from my mommy on my show, Culture Kitchen, and it is a delicious chickpea stew with chorizo and butternut squash and a lot of flavor. I'm gonna teach you guys how to make a sofrito. Say that with me, sofrito. And in Spanish, this dish is called potaje de garbanzo. That's garbanzo bean. So I hit the saute button, and all I'm doing is adding a little bit of olive oil. I've got some going in there. What I'm gonna do is heat the olive oil up for about 3 to 4 minutes. As soon as it gets sizzling hot, I'm gonna dump in all these veggies in here. You'll see me chop some up. I've got onion, I've got garlic, I've got green bell pepper, I've got some beautiful orange and red sweet peppers, which are just gonna give it some vibrancy, but also a nice little hint of sweetness. Here is the onion. You hear that sizzle going on there. And if you don't wanna use olive oil for whatever reason, that's totally fine. You can use vegetable oil. So I've added the onion. I've added now, or adding now, my peppers. I've got a combination of orange and green and red just for color. One way of knowing that your food is ready to cook or ready to go to the next step is the smell. So get to know food through smelling it and understanding what each layer is supposed to smell like. I smell nothing but goodness and a lot of garlic. So here go my chickpeas. I've got 2 cans of chickpeas. These are already pre-cooked, actually mostly cooked, so that's gonna take a lot of time out of your cooking process. I'm gonna slide this over so you can see what these beautiful, delicious tender, juicy filet mignon look like? When you go to the grocery store, make sure that you talk to your butcher or the person in the meat department if you don't know what you're looking for. Okay, so this is what that steak looks like, what the filet mignon looks like. It's one of my mom's favorite steaks. Traditionally, we would just start eating this, but I made this crazy delicious, super sexy browned butter garlic sauce that I'm just gonna smother over here. And I have like six or seven cloves of garlic, and look, this is what you want. Look at this yumminess, fat upon fat, but it's a good kind of fat. So thanks for hanging out. This is how I eat a lot. This is how I enjoy my family, how I celebrate my friends, how I celebrate and keep the culture alive. I'm gonna dig into this and taste my potaje de chorizo con garbanzos and butternut squash. I always say garlic makes everything better. Don't do anything basic, and always have a glass of bubbly in your hand.
In case you weren't aware, roller skating is still cool, and a new movie by a local filmmaker reminds us why.
Hi, my name is Trinidad Walters. My friends call me Tree, and I'm the writer, producer, and director of the Old School Rollers movie. I'm a native Washingtonian. I grew up in Northeast in a neighborhood called Kenilworth Courts. And it was very, very challenging growing up as a youth here in the DMV. I'm the youngest of 5, raised by a single mother at the time. So my moms didn't have the finances or the resources to make sure all her kids was involved in a lot of activities. But what she would do was encourage us to use those gifts and those talents and abilities that we had within us, and to go out and try to do our best. And so that's what I did. And roller skating was one of those activities that kept me focused. It kept me out of a lot of troubles, because instead of being on the streets of Washington, D.C. hanging out, I was hanging out with family and friends at the skating rink. And so that's what I did to pass a lot of time. How I got involved in broadcasting, I'm a musician as well. I play keyboards and percussion. So as a teenager, in my teenage years and going into my 20s, I was involved in a lot of studios, recording studios. And I had the awesome privilege to be at Future Sound Records and Tapes, owned by Rio Edwards, who is a legend in the go-go community. He was also the sound engineer for the late, great Chuck Brown. And so he took me under his wing, and I became his student. I was able to acquire the knowledge and the skill set that I needed to push me into my profession. My first professional job as a sound engineer was at Black Entertainment Television in 1996. I got hired as an audio engineer. And for the 8 years that I was at Black Entertainment Television, at the conclusion of that, I was able to start my own production company called Outreach Production. And so that's what led me to where I'm at right now. Roller skating has always been a huge part of my family. My grandfather was an awesome skater, and he used to skate at the legendary Calorama Road. I remember going there as a youth, and then I started skating with my brothers and my cousins and friends at the Alexandra skating rink when I was a teenager. And then we would also skate at Anacostia Park or Crystals, which is still there today. Crystals is called Skate Palace. And so yes, skating has always been a part of my family. It's a part of my DNA now. What made me decide to do the Old School Rollers movie? I decided to do it because I wanted people to get a sense of what it was like for me growing up in the DMV and being a part of that skate culture, but not just the skate culture, but also the go-go culture as well too, because both of those cultures was a part of me growing up, and I wanted to merge them together so people would get a sense of how it is growing up in the DMV under these two awesome cultures of the go-go community and the skate community, and put it all into one film so people can be totally amazed that this all comes out of the DMV area. Everyday life in the hood, in the DMV. The Old School Rollers is a movie about a gentleman who had just reached retirement age, After he retires, he realizes that he doesn't know what to do with his time until he has a conversation with his wife about revisiting some of the visions that he had when he was much younger. One of those visions was to start a roller skating class. So he sets out to do that, only to find out when he returns to the roller skating rink after so many years, things have changed. He encounters a situation with some disrespectful youth, and this leads to them challenging each other to an all-out skate battle.
Oh man, you need to get off the floor, especially if you see us coming.
Old man? Who you calling old man? See, that's the problem with you young folks today. You have no respect for your elders.
The two lead roles are played by Kenneth Davis, who plays the role of Anthony, and he is the captain for the Old School Rollers. And then you have his rival, which is played by Brian Colburn, who plays the role of Jaja, and he is the captain for the youth team, the Blackout Crew. The response to the Old School Rollers movie has been amazing. We've had 8 screenings so far, and each screening that we have, it's been a standing ovation. If people want to keep up with us at Outreach Productions, they can follow us online on Instagram, Facebook, and YouTube under Outreach TV Network.
That's our show. Thanks for watching, and until next time, always remember to follow your art.